I'm Gareth Wyn Jones, and I'm going to read you, hopefully, a story that will help you fall asleep. It's called The Carneddau, and it's from my book, The Hill Farmer. Looming over the farms and casting its shadow over all its inhabitants of the area, including our family and company members, is the Carneddau, the vast expanse of mountainous area stretching from Bethesda and the A5 in the west and the south to the Conway Valley in the east, and the northwards almost to the coastline, as well as thousands of acres of desolate plateau moorland, lakes and streams, stone walls, sheepfolds. It comprises of 19 peaks, 6 of them around 1,000 metres, over 3,000 feet. And the highest Carneddau, Carnedd Llywelyn, is 1,064 metres. It's only 21 metres lower than Snowdon. And the other two are Carnedd Dafydd and Pen yr Owen Wen, are slightly lower still. The Carneddau are wonderful in the summer, a medley of grass and purple patterns, attracting tourists to walk along the paths and the old Roman road, to graze in wonder at the views, to see nature at its best. But in the winter it changes, its character completely becoming bare and severe and unwelcoming, and it is hard struggle for man and beast to survive in such a place. My farm, Tyn Llwyfan, as the true of all the other farms in the area, consists of 3 parts: the lower land, the moorland, and the mountain, which is common or crown land. And on the mountains are the ponies, the famous Carneddau ponies, a small tough breed that was first introduced, according to history, by the Romans, and then developed by the Celts before those tribes were even called Welsh. These animals have survived every threat to their existence, including Henry VIII's order to kill every animal under 12 hands because they were too small to be war horses. Our family connection with the ponies dates back at least 300 years, and my great-grandfather used to sell some of them at the coal mines. They were ideal for work in the coal tunnels, as they were very small but sturdy, with strong bones and a capacity for hard work. They never leave the mountains except when we round them up and bring them down and treat them, trim their tails. Even during the toughest of winters, they remain on the mountain. Dad remembers during the terrible winter of 1947, when he was 8 years old, going with the men to take some hay up to the ponies, and the ponies refused to eat as they weren't used to it. They would rather starve and eat something that was foreign to them, and they would rather freeze in the habitat that came down from the mountain. Dad saw a pony and a foal frozen to death that winter and still standing upright. The ponies are not the property of the company, but are owned by my dad and my Uncle Teg. Their brand mark is the letter O, after my grandfather, Owen Jones. They inherited the ponies from him. Not all the ponies belong to the members of our family, of course. Other farmers have grazers and pony rights on the mountain, and each farm has its own brand mark for the ponies. It's a big day when we all come together to round them up and bring them down from the mountains to be treated. The quad bikes roar, and Gareth Wyn Jones, a well-known TV celebrity, compared the The canopy of the sound of hearing a record of Rommel's tanks attacking in the Second World War. They are wild animals, of course, and they must be tamed before they can come useful. Dad has tamed a pony for each of my children, as he did for my brother and me when we were small. But children soon grow too big for them. The ponies have caused quite a lot of hassle for our family, have survived. Sorry, I'll do that bit again. The ponies have caused quite a bit of hassle for our family, have survived a few crises and brought some income to both the owners as well. At time, the money came God, I've got to get the right page. From the National Park and the Countryside Commission, but today it comes from the Assembly Government through National Resources Wales. And there is a particular reason why we receive this money. Years ago, ponies' market price were extremely low and they were worth next to nothing. Dad took 12 of them to the sale at Breedr and had to bring 10 back after selling 2 for such a low price that he might as well given them away for free. At the time, a newspaper reporter came here to inquire about the ponies. In order to write an article about them, Dad told him that he would have to get rid of them all if market prices didn't improve. What he meant, of course, that he would have to sell them for a low price, but the reporter reported by saying that he wouldn't be able to get rid of them all, as some would be found the mountainous area would be so vast. Well, Dad said as a joke, if there are any left and I will find them, I will shoot them. The following week, there appeared a big headline in the local paper, all Carneddau ponies to be shot. Almost as soon as the newspaper came off the press, there was a frantic phone call for Dad from Breedr, one of the National Park officers, asking if the story in the paper was true. I never lied, Dad said to him, but what I said was I'd sell them, not shoot them. I've entered them into the Morgan Evans sale next week. Breedr was shocked when he heard this and asked my father to hold on until he had spoken to someone in the authority in Cardiff. And the result was that Uncle Ted and Dad were offered money to look after the ponies and towards the cost of managing, treating, sorting them before selling a limited number annually. Part of the money was also used to pay for legal costs and establishing the Carneddau Pony Society. Another condition tied to the money was they were meant to be given any medicines to treat worms. The obvious question is why the National Park and the Countryside Commission, and nowadays the Assembly Government, through National Resources of Wales, was so keen to protect these ponies and pay money for their maintenance and well-being. The answer is simple. The chough, the red-legged black bird that live on the Carneddau. The worms in the pony's dung are an important part of their diet. If there was no worms, there would be no choughs on the mountain. Indeed, the Countryside Commission and the National Park buy some of the Carneddau ponies to put them in habitats in other areas of the country to develop and protect the chough. The worms are the only elements in the ponies' importance regarding the chough's existence. Ponies graze differently to sheep. They graze much closer to the ground, and this makes it easier for the chough to search the soil for insects. Low market prices weren't the only thing that threatened the ponies. The European common market policies were also a threat because earmarking was made illegal and had to be replaced by a chip placed under the nape of each pony. In my opinion, the rule was instigated by bureaucrats who knew nothing of life in such a habitat as the Carneddau, wrongly assuming that earmarks are cruel and not realising the hassle and cost of putting a chip in each pony, something that was totally unsuitable for these ponies and for the mountain as well. The ponies are on the mountain throughout the winter, but the sheep are not. At least they're not supposed to be. And the authorities employ someone in each parish which is part of the mountain within its boundaries to be settler, a person who ensures that area is completely cleared of sheep and settles any disputes regarding rights, dealing with the stray sheep and resolving disputes between farmers. Dad had been appointed the parish settlor, and he had to go up the mountain often during the summer and winter as part of the agreement between the authorities and the farmers who graze the mountains. No sheep are allowed there between the end of October and the 1st of April, and part of Dad's job is to make sure that this rule is adhered to. The agreement works well. We receive a payment for bringing the sheep down from the mountain, and the sheep thrive much more from spending 6 months on the lower land during the winter. As a result, the sheep and lambs are stronger, and the wool and the meat is of better standard. Years ago, we would move the sheep to other farms for wintering on the lowlands, but that agreement has come to an end and have enough land of our own, owned or rented. The reason why Natural Resources Wales doesn't want the sheep on the mountain during the winter is to protect the land for the ponies and to give it time to recover. Pony grazing isn't as destructive as sheep grazing. Comprising 10% of a whole of Snowdonia, the Carneddau is a sustained part of the Wales. And one of the people who was absolutely enthralled with this place was Gareth Wyn Jones. He came here in 2006 to film for his series of programmes, Mountains. He came to witness the rounding of the ponies, and he was astonished to see the large numbers of us who were preparing for the task. From our company and other farms and that have ponies on the Carneddau, he was also surprised that we all spoke Welsh and had a lot of fun with plenty of banter and leg pulling going on. Some people can't be ignored, can be so ignorant, even of aspects of the country where we were born in. One of the first lessons that he learned was how to pronounce his own name, Rhys, because he called himself Rhys, and the assembly gathering wouldn't have it. The bikes had quite an impact on him as well, and he travelled up the mountain on the back of mine, holding on for dear life and contemplating that his bum was being bounced ruthlessly. This is how he described the beginning of his journey. 16 or so red-faced farmers, their sons, their uncles and their cousins in a variety of woolly hats, mounted on fearsome armadas of fat-tired, mud-spattered quad bikes, began revving their two-stroke engine in chorus. It was wild Welsh bunch. The noise was incredible. The bikes were battered and grungy. That was Gareth Wyn Jones's piece from Mountains. All the way up, and after we had arrived beyond the mountain wall, I tried to explain to him what was happening. Quite challenging because of the roar of the bikes and the fact that the wind snatched the words from my mouth. But despite the uncomfortable ride, he loved it and had a day to remember, a day in which he got an opportunity to learn about what happens in a rounding operation of this kind and why it happens at all. The views also astonished him, and he saw them at their best because it was a clear summer's day. We had a wonderful experience, but not of the mountainous ferocity showing its teeth. It's a total different place then, and we have to cope with the mountain no matter its mood. I remember the time when sheep were on the mountain all through the winter, and remember the effort made to look after them in bad weather. Being on the mountain during that time taught me a lot. I remember the winter of 1987 when a few of us had to go up in the snow. Keith, who worked with Uncle Teg and who was like an older brother to me, and myself were in our early 20s, and we were quite cocky and thought we knew the lot and could cope with anything. With us was Wilton Harrad, a man who was in his 60s and enjoyed his whiskey, but who had been in the Special Forces during the war and was surprisingly fit. We went on our bikes as far as the mountain wall, but couldn't ride then any further. We had to walk. "Come on," Keith said to me. "We'll go on and let the old people catch up with us." So off we went with our dogs through the deepening snow, and before too long we were exhausted and struggling. Who came past us with a strong smell of whiskey on his breath but Will, together with his 5 dogs, and they were like wolves. And by the time we had reached the first batch of sheep, he was already rounding them up. He didn't need to say anything. He had taught us as young lads a lesson. We who thought that we could do everything and knew the lot. Everything regarding the Carneddau works well for us now, but that wasn't always the case. The matter of keeping to the cneving, hefting as it's called, has been complicated, especially the issue of grazing rights on parts of the mountain that belong to particular farm flocks. When the sheep are on the mountain more or less throughout the year, giving birth to their lambs, they knew their hefts and would keep quite close to it. But one thing that conflicted against this was the weather causing problems, a problem that once led to a court case for my dad and his 2 brothers. The farmers who grazed the part of the mountain above Abergwyngregyn, Aber to the local people, didn't accept the fact that our company had the right to graze there, and yet during windy weather, when the wind was blowing from a particular direction, our sheep, around 500 of them, would wander to the mountain above Aber, where they were shelter, and then they had the right to graze. But this is not how the farmers of Aber saw things, and Dad and his brothers had to go to civil court at Carnarvon to argue over Owen Jones's hefting rights on that part of the mountain. It had developed into a nasty situation, and only court of law could resolve. But our company won, and it was proved that the Aber sheep also wandered over to our heft when the wind blew from the other direction. All of this is behind us now. It is all ancient history, thank goodness for that. We have been one community of graziers for years and get along well. The chairman is my cousin Tudor, and my second cousin Liam Jones is the secretary, and I'm the treasurer. Cneving, a part of the mountain which is habitat for the sheep and particular farm. Sheep that are on the mountain throughout the year keep to their habitat, without the need of fence to keep them within it. It's the problem. The problem has long been resolved by now. Another problem has arisen due to the fact that the sheep aren't on the mountain all the year round. We have no rights to put them there between October and April, so they are less certain of their heft when we go back up in the beginning of April. It's not enough to leave them once. They have to be driven beyond the mountain wall. We must take them to where they are supposed to be. We have to establish the heft, and by doing that, there is every chance that they will stay within their backyard. From our point of view, all human problems have been resolved. There remains only the weather, storms to cause disruption on the mountains now. There is, for us farmers who have grazing rights there, in the words of Gareth Wyn, her ar y carneddau, peace on the carneddau. I hope you enjoyed that little piece from the Hill Farmer, and thank you very much for listening. Stay safe, and if you have got any problems, always contact somebody. Health awareness and mental awareness is very important to all of us. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Thank you very much.